The 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church are baptism, reconciliation, confirmation, the Eucharist, marriage, holy orders, and anointing of the sick. Baptism gives a person the graces needed to remove original sin and enter heaven. Confirmation seals the character imprinted on the soul at baptism. Reconciliation removes personal sin as we falter during our lives. Marriage and holy orders prepare someone to live their particular calling from God. And the Eucharist stands as the central sacrament of worship to God, where Christ's sacrifice on Calvary is represented forever for the benefit of souls. Though perhaps the least well-known or understood of these 7 sacraments, the sacrament of anointing of the sick has a scriptural basis in the ministry of Christ, just like all the other sacraments. In this case, anointing of the sick is based on the work of Jesus and the apostles to lay hands on the sick and the dying. From the very early days of the Church, we know that this ministry continued, because of passages like those in James chapter 5, which say, "Is anyone among you sick? He should summon the presbyters of the church, and they should pray over him, and anoint him with oil in the name of the Lord, and the prayer of the faith will save the sick person, and the Lord will raise him up." The Ecumenical Council of Trent considers this passage to be so central to this sacrament that it notes, "The Roman Church, the mother and mistress of all other churches, does not observe anything in administering this unction that has not been prescribed by the Blessed James." Just like James 5 describes, the Church's presbyters, which is another word for priest, will anoint a dying person with oil and ask God for their healing. If it is God's will that an individual continue their earthly work, the sacrament of anointing of the sick will cause physical healing, and that person will be able to continue living their earthly life as a Christian. But what about for those whom God does not wish physical healing? Is a priest who performs anointing of the sick working against God's will by trying to extend a life that has reached its conclusion? The answer, of course, is no, and the reason is that anointing of the sick has a secondary and far more important purpose, which is to offer extra graces to those near death or in mortal peril. Consider the situation of a Christian who is about to die. Perhaps they have lived well and they are about to receive eternal reward. If the vindictive demons of Satan are to keep that soul from achieving heaven and drag them to hell, it must be now, for the matter is very urgent. The Ecumenical Council of Trent directly points this out when it says, "For though our adversary, i.e. the devil, seeks and seizes occasions throughout our whole life to devour our souls in any manner, yet there is no time when he strains more vehemently all the powers of his cunning to ruin us utterly, and if possible, to make us even lose faith in the divine mercy, than when he perceives that the end of our life is near." Thus the sacrament of anointing of the sick is uniquely suited to this final fight. Just as the devil will redouble his efforts to cause a soul to be lost, so is the Church responding by giving the soul extra graces. Furthermore, although the sacrament of reconciliation ordinarily accompanies anointing of the sick itself is also a remedy against sin, and can remove latent attachment to that sin if it has not yet been purified.